Hey guys, Lifeguard Leroy here. And before anyone asks, yes, I am actually a lifeguard. I also am an artist, a really good artist. I'm the best damn artist on this planet, man. Like, holy shit. I mean, I think I made like $100 last year, and it prevented me from starving to death. So, yeah, I already beat like 100, like 99% of artists out there. Just don't get past that stage, you know. Anyway, everyone calls me LG or Leroy. It doesn't really matter which. I don't really mind. And today I'm going to be showing you how me and my friend built this table behind me, which is like a 40K, whatever, Age of Sigmar, whatever you want to use it for. It's good for that. It's a 6 by 6 foot table. Play space is about 6 foot by 4 foot. It's not really that. I think it's just under by like an inch, which is kind of annoying. I kind of want to build it slightly bigger, but because I live in Australia, everything's in metric, and just not exactly. It's not. It doesn't come in feet. It comes in like 1600 by 1200 or something, which is just under, which is really frustrating. But all you have to do is like measure like an inch off when you set up the game, so it's not too bad. So basically, this is going to be a multi-part series. For the first video, I'm just going to be showing you some of how I built the table. I didn't record it. I didn't get any of the recording. I got photos and stuff, and I can explain it. It's relatively straightforward build for the table. And then mostly I'll be showing you how I airbrushed and painted the table. And then in future videos, I'm going to be making some XPS foam terrain, like cliffs, canyons, and all bits of like Necron stuff and like random scatter terrain. But I need to get some more wire for my hot wire cutter because, well, when I ordered the hot wire cutter, it didn't actually come with wire, which is kind of annoying. I was going to do a review video on that, and then it just sort of stopped halfway through because I didn't have the wire. And that's going to delay the next video following this video by like a couple of weeks, maybe. I might get lucky. I might be able to find some of the hardware store tomorrow or something. Other than that, yeah, let's get straight into it. Let's start explain. I'll start with explaining the build of the table. So we started with 2 squares of 6 by 4 pine studs, usually used for building internal walls in houses. My friend's a builder, so he had all the tools. He had a circular saw, like measuring stuff. Basically, every tool I needed for this project, besides paintbrushes, my friend supplied. So that made things like 100 times easier for me, and it's gonna make, if you have a friend like that or you're a builder yourself, this project's gonna be so much easier for like every part, like all part of making the table part. So what we did was we started by making 2 squares of I believe it's 6 foot by 4 foot, and then used 6 studs that are approximately like the height of a kitchen table, say like waist height, say kitchen bench top. So we raised, and then we used the 6 studs legs to build like a table. Slightly, yeah. The first square was for the base, and then the second square was just below the stud by about, let's say, 2 inches, 2 or 3 inches. Actually, I'll just double check that. Yeah, it's under by 3 inches, give or take the width of the board, which is like a 20 mil thick MDF. Oh jeez, the bird started. I'm filming this thing at like 4 a.m. All right, after that we put a MDF board on the bottom to form a bottom shelf. That's nailed down with a nail gun, and then we cut up same size board. Oh no, we added extra studs on the inside of the frame to increase the strength, and also we doubled up on the studs on the corners to give extra strength to the corners, and then there's a bit of a riser to it as well. So we had room for the shelving and the cladding at the top to allow for the table to actually be set in instead of just a flat table and allow all the dice and terrain to just fall off the edge. All right, so I'm adding this in post a couple of hours later, but I forgot to mention that the shelves, they're about a foot wide, um, and they're held on with 6 stainless steel brackets that were like a couple of, I think they were like $4 or $5 each, and then they're held in place with about like 4 screws each, I think. And then we added the MDF cladding on the outside to like kind of finish it. And my friend actually cut like a little dip where the shelf was, so it fits snugly around the outside, which worked out really well. After that, we just painted the whole thing with gray, like cheap acrylic house paint. It was like $20, and I also used that for I use that for primer as well for a lot of terrain and stuff. So like $20, 24, 25 Australian dollars on just a tub of dark gray house paint, as dark as you can tint it. Usually it's like cheap stuff is like pretty light, and you can't really tint it that dark. So maybe you have to mix in darker colors if you want a darker gray than what the table looks like. But for now, it's fine. I might paint it black later if I feel like it. But yeah, once all the studs and stuff were in, we started working on the board, and the board was just primed gray, the same as the rest of the table, and then we painted the whole thing with a mix of sand and the gray house paint that we used to prime everything and paint the table. And that made this really nice, consistent, like, paste. It's like pretty much identical to GW Astro Granite, except if you were to buy Astro Granite to fill this board, you would spend like $2,000 on those tiny little paint pots and go crazy. And that's a very bad idea. So just use house paint, and and a $5 bag of sand is enough. Like I still got, like I didn't even use like 5% of that sand, and that was enough to cover an entire board. So that bag of sand is gonna last me for like 10 years of hobby, and I might even have to get rid of it at some point. The next part was airbrushing. I started airbrushing it with just cheap acrylic paints that I thinned down heaps. And I noticed like it did kind of clog with the thicker paints. People say don't put a like cheap acrylic paint through a airbrush, but if you use enough thinner, it's like anything will go through. Right, so you see it goes down. The brown paint goes down pretty patchy, and then like you kind of want to just the idea is that it was a $5 paint tube, and I wanted to spread it out as thin as possible. And to make it spread, I kind of had to use the airbrush, and it's a bit cheap, but like it saves. I think if you airbrush on cheap acrylic paint, it does go a little bit further. And also, I kind of was after the patchy effect to have some kind of undercoat where it's like patches of like the gray and the brown, and then more in the brown areas, I won't be covering up as much. So you kind of want to spray down an extra thick layer or a couple of layers of the brown acrylic. In between paint layers, remember to just turn your ceiling fan or heating up to extreme. Right, more post editing. After the initial airbrush patchy layer, I went in and blocked in with a big house brush just to like kind of get a lot more color down. In all fairness, it's like I probably don't even need to use the airbrush at this stage, and I need to experiment with using the airbrush at later stages for creating more sort of smooth transitions. But you can do that with dry brushing, and I did manage to do a lot of that with dry brushing afterwards. And yeah, basically, if airbrushing a board is just painful, I wouldn't suggest doing it, and just dry brush for the moment. There are like moments where I could experiment in future with actually airbrushing on a board. This was mostly like the airbrushing was mostly a test, to be honest, and it kind of worked for what I wanted to do, but like I really, I just need to like figure out what I actually want to use like it for in future. After the initial brown color, I then started going in where all the patches of gray were still showing through with the fawn color to try and fill in and create like a transition between two different browns. So it would go from dark brown to like a medium brown, all the way up to a sandy brown, and then eventually like a white highlight of like really bright sand. Okay, so after I got the airbrush the fawn layer down, I mixed up a black wash. The black wash was just made with a mix of black craft paint and water, so it was really easy to make. And hit the darker brown areas with that black wash and really try to darken up the areas in between, where I wanted to, like, sort of the riverbeds and the anywhere where it just looked like it needed to be shaded darker to kind of and cover up any of the gray areas that were showing through as well, and add like an extra layer of like shadow and depth to the board, which it really needed at that stage because it was looking too bright, I think. Next part you'll see here is me dry brushing the white. I used a arena sand, and I kind of went like really bright in certain areas, trying to get that build up that bright area where I wanted the sand to be, and it has that gives a really high contrast to the dark riverbed areas, and kind of overall like gives a really good transition to the board, so it's not just all one flat color. After I waited for everything to dry, we just moved the board back into place, and then I checked for warping and saw there was some of the warping in one of the corners, so we ended up just putting weights in 3 of the 4 corners, and it's mostly flat now. It's like it'll do. I just want to say the only thing missing from the table is dice boxes, but because the skirting around the edges of the table kind of prevent dice from falling off the edge, you don't even need dice boxes, which is just another bonus of this table. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this whole table worked out, and in the future I do plan on adding terrain for that. So if you're interested and you like this video, subscribe for more, and I'll get the XPS foam terrain videos out sometime in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, I do have some other stuff in the channel coming, review videos, some art stuff. Also, if you do want to help me out, you can go over to my Twitch. I don't use Patreon, but I might set one up in future. Mostly it's just like, oh, you can just donate on Twitch. That's the best way if you want to help me out. And also, it's not just terraining 40k. I also do plan on doing some sculpting videos with green stuff and random different things. I do digital art commissions. I'm not taking digital art commissions right now, but if I get desperate for money or something in future, I might end up doing those over on my Twitch. So yeah, just mash all the buttons down below. Hopefully something good will happen. And follow on Twitch. It'll be in the link or somewhere on the screen, and subscribe. So yeah, thanks guys. See you next time.